Hi, and welcome back to the podcast that wanders and is lost. We might be lost, but we arrive precisely when we mean to, and that time is right now. Hi, here we are. I am your host, Melissa, and we are here with our episode entitled The Times They Are a Changin'. And we are recording this on October 9th, 2022. We are discussing The Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 7, called The Eye. I am joined by my lovely panel of co hosts and really the most important person here. Bailey, you're back. It's so nice to see you.
I am no longer lost.
Yay! She took a brief hiatus. Welcome back. Good to see you. Everything's going well. Yes.
Yes, very well.
Right.
No
And then
complaints.
then we have Luke. Luke is here.
Hey, I'm here. Thanks for inviting me back to my show. Nice to be back.
You know what? And you're welcome. And
Thanks.
also Riley.
Oi!
Hi, Riley.
Hello.
Holy small fry.
Oi, small fry.
All right, we're going to jump right in. So we here at Drawbridge Media, this show and all of our shows are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. Learn about how you can support us and our reward tiers at patreon.com/stayimaginary. As I said, we were discussing, what was it, episode 7, The Eye. That episode was 1 hour and 12 minutes long. It aired on October 7th, 2022. Director was Charlotte Brandstrom, and the writer of this one was Jason Cahill. Luke, what was the episode description?
Survivors of a cataclysm try to find safety. The Harfoots confront evil. Durin is torn, not Tom, even though that's what it looks like in the font. Torn between friendship and duty. Adar considers a new name.
All right. And so unlike last time when we went chronologically, because the story kind of all trailed together, we are going to go back to our location by location synopsis. So we're going to start in the Southlands, as did the episode. And Riley, start us off. What was the first scene?
Yeah, the first scene, Galadriel awakes to a world of fire and shadow. Isildur and Miriel free Valendil, but find Antimo did not make it. While rescuing others, the Queen Regent gets burned, and Isildur is trapped by a burning building.
All right. So what were your first impressions starting this, waking up in this new world?
It's a bit ashy and crusty, right? Like the opening shot on her eyelid with the, I don't know, just a little uncomfortable. Like,
Oh, for
I
sure.
think if you just had sand on you at some point,
I
this
just
has
wanted
got to
go
be
wash
worse.
my face.
Right? Yeah, it's just, it's just uncomfortable. But, yeah, I mean, it definitely looks fairly cataclysmatory. It looked pretty rough, for sure. So we jump right back into that final moment we had from last episode, which I think is, I'm a fan of when they do that. They don't beat around the bush and make you wait longer or skip it. Let's just get right back to, the meat and potatoes of the biggest element that's happened in the show so far.
I thought it was visually beautiful. For as dark and depressing as this is. Right. Okay. I get it. Fire, ash, dark. But I love the way they shot it. I love the red lighting. I love the dimness. I love that it was so gray throughout the red in the sky, even. So you can feel the ash still just sort of living in the space. I felt very much like I do when I watch clips from and when I watch live, like the TV shots from 9/11. That
Sure.
level of just constant smoke.
Yeah, like a saturation of just
Mhm.
particles in the air, and yeah, I'd agree. I feel so bad Antimo didn't make it. Like, he's been the constant, like, butt of the jokes, and just, that's just Antimo. So I was very sad for his loss.
Did anyone else, when they showed him laying there, get a vibe that he looked a little bit like Sean Astin in that moment? Just me? Like, the way, he just really, his face looked a lot like Sean Astin. So I was like, it's not Antimo. This guy shouldn't be here for a couple thousand years.
That's funny.
I will say I felt like that in a lot of moments in this episode in particular. I felt a lot of call forwards to Lord of the Rings. it was just a lot of moments of connection for me as it went on. And so I wonder if they did that. I mean, if that's just Luke's brain jumping to that connection, or if that was shot, like if he was laying at a certain angle in a certain way intentionally to reminisce that.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have just been the lighting and, kind of just a weird visual on it. But yeah, I'm sure I'm probably in the minority on, for some reason, thinking that it would have been Sean. I wouldn't really think it was him. It was just visually, it kind of looked like his face a bit.
And he dies a lot, so there's that.
Hey, when you have a skill set. One question I have for you guys is there's been some conversations of how dark some of these episodes have been just visually on screen. Did you guys have any issues with this portion? Riley, you kind of mentioned something to me earlier today.
Yeah, so I was just watching it during the day, which I went back earlier, a couple hours ago, and watched it during the night, and it was way better. But for half the episode, I could not see what was going on. It was just a black screen at all. Like, I couldn't tell what was going on at all. I mean, I just don't have great blinds in my room, so like that's one thing, but it was so dark that I was literally just watching the subtitles on a black screen for like 15 minutes, I feel like.
I did not at all. That actually, as I was watching it, made a mental note of, man, this is so much easier to see than the last House of Dragons episode, which I felt like I was watching subtitles on a screen, and I had blacked my entire room out to try and see it. So that's interesting that you had that happen on this one. I did not notice that.
Yeah, I realized I just jumped within our own podcast because it was a House of the Dragon thing that we had talked about that everyone else seemed to have issues with how dark it was, and I generally just didn't even realize.
I feel like we talked about this
for
this show a couple episodes ago.
Okay. All right, good. I'm not completely out of line then.
I mean, a little, but
not completely.
Not entirely.
Right.
I didn't have issues with this scene. A little later when we get back into the mines, it was dark, but I also noticed that like if I'm watching on an iPad, I tend to have less of an issue as opposed to if I'm watching on a television. So I don't know. Maybe just because it's like adapting to the brightness of the room.
It could be,
more
sure.
Than the television.
Yeah, I watched it on my computer screen the second time, so it was a lot better too.
Interesting. We do see, Queen Regent. Well, I guess we quickly get to Galadriel meeting up with Theo right away, right? And she's kind of like, "Hey, come with me." That's all we get from them. Neat. Okay, they're together. Then we have the Queen Regent and Isildur and all of that with Antimo and Valendil. And Isildur doesn't really hesitate to run in. Well, one, he has to save Valendil, and he tries to save Antimo, but can't do it, right? That's a rough moment, kind of what we quickly touched upon. But even when they find that house with the door kind of boarded shut, he doesn't hesitate to run in there and try to help out with, the queen right behind him. So it was just cool to see him doing something in hero mode, like without any hesitation. And he was highly successful at what his goal was in that moment. Obviously, we have this, oh no, Isildur, is he dead? Like, come on. Pretty good chance he's not.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and just call that one out.
Yeah, I think he's going to be okay.
He's one of our very safe characters.
Any other character.
He's one of our 3 hyper safe characters for sure. So, yeah, I don't know. It's good for TV drama, I suppose, but literally anyone who's seen even 30 seconds of the Lord of the Rings movies at all from the beginning, you already know that he's got a couple thousand years in him, at least from the timeline they're trying to do.
Right.
However that ends up working, we'll get past those semantics later, but clearly he's got more of a role to play.
Yeah. It's fine. Anyone else.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Oh, we got the fire horse running by too, and a guy
that was
crawling on
cool.
fire. That Galadriel just like, he'll be okay, or he won't. Those are the options. Like, she doesn't really go to help.
He's too far gone.
Yeah. Oh,
But
man.
I think so. That's I think the thing I not enjoyed, because that makes me sound a little sadistic. The thing I appreciated about what Galadriel was doing as she first seems alone, and then the fire horse comes by, and then we see like a couple other people sort of also wandering aimlessly. I think that's the shock of living through something like that. You just kind of watch because either you're, it's that fight, flight, or freeze. She kind of froze, sort of like she's moving, but her brain is shut down, as opposed to Muriel and Isildur, which we see spring right into, we got to do stuff right now. I think I like how they showed the different reactions of people. What do you do? Because you don't know what you would do. I don't know. I really liked the opening scene. I thought it sucked me in.
Yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job. I think the other thing of consequence that happens right here is Muriel gets her face burnt a little bit. We don't know much about that in that moment because we're more focused on Isildur being trapped. But she does get a spray of ashes and flames into her face, and as she gets blown out that door through that. So I just think that's the other kind of important narrative piece as we move forward. But we'll have plenty more to talk about that, I think, here soon.
Next scene. Galadriel convinces Theo to give up and leave the Shadowland to the orcs. Elendil watches the survivors pass and hopes for Isildur, but finds Queen Regent, Valandil, and News instead. Theo and Galadriel hike back to the Númenórean camp. Galadriel counsels, ironically, the darkness that celebrating killing orcs can bring on a heart. Elendil and Muriel realize her eyesight has been taken in the explosion.
There's a lot of little parts to this,
Mm-hmm.
right? This whole episode is a lot of nothing huge happening, but lots of little moments that seem important. So this first part is the fact that Galadriel spends a lot of this episode counseling herself in the form of teenage Theo, is kind of how I took it. And this was the first time we see her really say, like, we have to go. We can't win this. We have to give up and admit the defeat. And I think that is not something we expect to see from our Galadriel ever. That's a big change from the warrior Galadriel in the first episode.
Yeah, I think she's really showing her commander skill set rather than being as emotionally driven by her goal as she kind of has been. I think she's letting her logic and her battle mind take over in this episode, and taking the step back and realizing that they need to regroup and that they lost this battle, but the war is just starting, so they want to try to regroup and get as many people out as they can.
It's kind of hard to fight a volcano.
Yeah.
So you regroup and take a different angle, I suppose.
One could try. One could not be
Resources on something pointless.
What's the definition of futility? Go fight that mountain. Try that on for size, Galadriel. But she calls it out.
I can take it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Elendil and his not apparently available son.
Yeah, he's definitely worried, right? I mean, he kind of gets this glimmer of hope because we see Beric the horse show up, and he clearly calls out for his son across the, kind of glade here, if you will, and he's quickly let down. I mean, I'm sure he's not like mad at that guy for having Beric, it's just kind of an unfortunate, not what he was hoping for. He's probably glad that guy's alive too, good for him, but where's my son?
Not quite the same as my kid, but okay.
Right. Hey, another survivor, good thing, but not the one I was hoping for in this moment.
And then he also sees Muriel and Valandil. I'm just excited Valandil's not dead yet.
You're just excited about that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel Elendil's pain in not knowing about Isildur. We know about Isildur. Isildur's gonna be okay. But he doesn't know that, and they're the ones who saw. So I think the actor does a really good job of convincing us with very little of the turmoil he's in. But I will say I'm very happy Valandil is at least alive, and that we have at least one member of that trio to follow for now.
I thought it was good to see Elendil really kind of getting upset by this, because we've seen him be really nonchalant on purpose towards Isildur, right? He's been very, I wouldn't say non-committal, but wasn't going to just give him a leg up because of Isildur's, hey, I'm son of a important guy card that he was trying to play.
Yeah,
But-
who's also been kind of a consistent disappointment to his father.
Right. But it's good to see that, I mean, there's true care and love either way, you know, as a parent would. It was just nice to have these kind of rougher emotional moments for Elendil throughout this episode.
I was feeling kind of like wanting for more in this conversation because, you know, it ends with him being like, "Where's my son?" And Valendil and Muriel like know what happened, and they didn't tell. We don't see them tell Elendil the story of how it went down at all, and like, I don't know. I feel like they kind of owe it to Isildur to be like, yeah, your son was a hero and trying to save people, right? And like, you should know that he was not just doing something stupid and made a mistake, right? I wanted to see that conversation. I was kind of let down that we didn't, and they cut away from it.
Sure. I can see that.
And maybe it's too
I
soon.
was gonna say they could be in shock still
Yeah.
about
100%.
everything going on. So I can see where it wouldn't be the first thing necessarily, and there's gonna be plenty of time for them to
Yeah.
come to grips with it, you know, moving forward.
I also think that that is a typical thing that TV shows and movies do when bad information has to be conveyed. They do it through looks.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something we would necessarily do in real life. At least that's not something I would do in real life because, right, I want to convey the exact information. Words are really useful for that. But I think it was done for dramatic effect.
Sure.
All right. We also didn't talk about the fact that Galadriel knows where to go. Did you guys know that Numenor had a camp on the ridge?
I mean, they would have had to do something when they were first. They probably dropped a handful of people off on their cavalry charge in and just said, hey, you guys get stuff set up here. We're going to be here, you know, in the planning mode. And then they, you know, take off and whoever can catch up afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I just took it as. I mean, to me, she would definitely know that if anyone's going to.
Yes. I
One
just
of
don't
those
like
things that happened off screen. Yeah. Where we don't see them set up camp, we just see them charging in, but you know, clearly they're not charging in fresh off the boat.
I mean, and that does help with the pacing of the last episode because if we had seen them constantly stomp at camp for however long it actually took, then that would have ruined the pacing of the last episode. So, okay, I can see the point.
Yeah. I mean, the camp setting up spot would probably not be the most exciting on screen. Not saying we wouldn't see something like that, but with all of the excitement of the battling and the horse charge, like, yeah, the pacing would have been pretty out the window if they were like, hey, let's show them driving some stakes in right now and, you know, undoing sleeping bags and cots. It's just not quite the same.
Maybe if the season in general was going to be longer, that would have been something that could have been, you know, interesting to focus on and get like small moments with the characters. But given that we only have 8 episodes, just not time to throw in those lighthearted moments.
There was one writer who just was vying for the scene he wrote about the camp setup. It's on the, you know, the cutting room floor, and he's just still stewing over it as it came out last week.
They don't know how they had a camp there.
They're gonna ask, how is there a camp? How? They're gonna be confused. They're like, I think we can gloss over this one this time. Works for me. Apparently Melissa was the one that he was worried about, though. She can't get over, where is this camp? How does she know there's a camp?
It wasn't that she knows. Of course she would know. It's like, well, that's convenient that they're throwing that in now.
Yeah.
But it's fine. You know, Muriel could have said at the end of the last whatever, like, we'll bring in healers from our camp over the ridge. It's fine. It's fine.
Here we are.
Muriel. I like the let me know when we get out of the gray. And she rides past and the stick goes right past her face. And how long have we been out of the gray?
Almost a mile. It's quite a while. And yeah, I mean, she's definitely trying to project strength throughout this, right? To not create,
Mhm.
more panic in this moment. But hey, let's just get through this. Like, just guide my horse. No one needs to know about this right this minute. Not that I'm trying to super hide stuff from my people, but it's just not an important piece right now that could be taken as a bigger issue than it probably needs to be right in this moment. But that sucks.
Yeah. I like that she.
Does.
Go ahead.
No, I just said it does suck.
I was going to say, part of me in the moment where she said, "You just keep leading me, and no one will know." I had to stop and think about my reaction because first I was like, "Why are you not telling people?" Then I was like, "No, panic. They just had this big giant explosion. It is okay to just be strong until you get to camp." So, and then later on, we see that like it's not a hidden thing. But in that one moment, I was like, okay, fine. Well, lead with strength right now. That's what people need. So,
Yeah,
but that
and
was
don't make it about her when literally
Mhm.
all of these people have died around that. Like, it would just come across as whiny, and that's not something that she needs at all. There doesn't need to be any dissent on like, wow, she's really making this about herself. Like, you just don't need that kind of view right now, and she realizes that. So like, I originally had a hesitation on that too. I was like, well, I mean, I like leading with honesty, but this one, it's not being dishonest for nefarious purposes. It's being dishonest to just keep the calm, the little bit of calm that they have in this moment of respite. So it was a smart leader move to not make it about herself and let's just get this part of the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she showed like an incredible amount of composure to be able to think with her leader brain while going through a traumatic thing, like I just think that that's incredible.
yes.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, anyone who's watching her, not that they are, because at this point they're all just trying to get to camp. Like they're not paying attention to detail so much. Uh, but it's clear that something is wrong because, like, she's not looking around at her surroundings. She's not, you know, turning and reacting to anything. She's kind of just staring straight ahead this entire time. She's not even looking down when she's talking to Ellendale. So there's clearly something going on with her. She just doesn't bring more attention to it.
Yeah, tough spot though for everyone here.
And then the scene cuts. So we go to the next one.
Theo and Galadriel camp for the night and she shares about her husband. Theo feels the weight of responsibility, orcs approach, and Galadriel chooses to remain hidden. This is one of those scenes that, when you mentioned a lot of ties to the Lord of the Rings, that made it a connection for me. It looked a lot like the hobbits hiding from the ring wraith in the first film. So I think that was intentional.
I thought that was intentional as well.
Yeah.
I agree. I want to talk about Celeborn first. She's got a husband. I mean, like, yeah, okay, it's Galadriel. She's got a husband, but we don't. She lost him.
Yeah, like where's he at?
I know where he is. He's in here.
Right.
At some point, she finds him. But he's not
trapped in the book.
She's got a nice little carved out spot on page 652.
Let me out.
Oh, ridiculous. But yeah, it really
Not
kind
nice
of
to keep people trapped in books.
it does feel like she lost him. Like she like almost like the Entwives of like we just don't know where they're at. No, they didn't die. We just lost them. Like what's like, okay, I don't know what you mean. Like how does that happen? Where are they? So yeah, interesting that that's the way that they're rolling through that. It's definitely putting, and even Theo kind of has one of these moments of like it's putting her in a different light than we've seen because we've only seen her be commander, very not romantic driven at all. So it kind of in that moment shows that, yeah, I mean, she has real people things too, but it's also different when she's a couple thousand years old. So, things just occur differently. But Theo's even like, you had a husband? You were dancing? What? Like, that is so different from what I've gotten from you so far. I've only talked to you for, like, I don't know, 38 words so far, but, you know, I know your whole
You mean-
history.
You mean you're not a robot cyborg?
Right? Right.
I mean, 7 episodes in, we haven't seen anything to the contrary, so
Not much. Just with
I-
her and Halbrand, but outside of that, not much.
yeah. I'm glad that they brought Celeborn back into the world, if you will, that they acknowledge the fact that he was around. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of him not being present at the moment, but I am willing to see where it goes.
It
I'm not
feels
against it.
it feels like a drop that he's going to be in next season is what it feels like to me, or maybe even season 3, you know, something like that. But it's going to become a character that they're going to use throughout the show, and clearly towards the end, it's going to have to. But yeah, it just feels like they're dropping this now to be able to easily introduce a rejoining of them at some point on screen, which will be nice.
Yeah.
Well, and he exists before this time in the world of Middle Earth for her. So the fact that up till this point they hadn't mentioned it, you know, what are you just ignoring this whole history she has with him? So at least it's being acknowledged. I don't know. Girl's married. She's got work to do. So she's not defined by her relationships, I guess. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then we have the ring wraith-esque moment, only apparently orcs aren't very good at smelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took it. I think it was not shot well for what they were going for because they were clearly out of the main line of like the ash fall and everything. But so I think they should have done more visually to add that back in. But it seemed like they were getting at that all of the smells are being overthrown by this powerful ash scent that they can't get rid of. So I think that it was why that they weren't able to smell them, obviously, but I don't think they did a good enough job like matching the visuals to what they were going for.
The only other time we've had references to smells with the orcs is last episode when Adar knows that Arondir's still at the tower.
Yeah.
And they're all like, oh, he's not here. And he's like, no, I can smell him. Like,
Yeah.
he's here. So, like, I wonder if they're leaning into that of the further down the orc lineage you go, the less heightened sense of smell that we see from Adar might not be there. I don't know. It's just specifically the only 2 times I can remember it coming up within the context of these orcs that we've seen.
Sure.
So I don't know if they're tying that or not, but there's that.
In which case, it was the orcs who couldn't
only-
hear.
The only other thing smell wise I could think is maybe Galadriel and Theo are just so like enveloped in ash on them
Sure.
that's helping to kind of mask
Sure.
them too.
Sure.
Like it's
Totally
it's
valid.
masking the surrounding.
That's what I kind of assumed, that, you know, all of the scents were drowned by a volcano ash.
That makes sense. And I don't remember if it was a scene before this, but Galadriel gives Theo her sword, and he almost uses it.
Yeah.
Seems like that's going to be important, I guess. But interesting choice for me. I don't know.
For her to give it to him.
Yeah, I feel like you give him the dagger. Like,
I don't know if she's giving that dagger up.
is that a special one?
That's the one that she got from her brother.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, that was used when he was originally chasing
Yeah, yeah,
Sauron.
yeah.
So I think that's always been on her hip. Like
Sure.
that's something I've noticed since then is she's very, very specifically attached to that. So normally I would say yes, but because of the significance
Sure.
of this dagger being Finrod's, I don't think that's going anywhere.
Right.
I would like to add this. So if most of the scene is more like Frodo and in the book it's just Frodo, but Frodo and all the hobbits on the road in the Shire with the ring wraith, right, and the underneath root thing. The part where Theo pulls out the sword and Galadriel stops him is more like Weathertop
Sure.
when Sam starts to pull out his sword, and Frodo's like, "No, don't." Um, there's a little like there's multiple Hobbit things that I notice in that, but that the sword thing was very slight for
Yeah,
me.
I didn't pick up on that.
One more question, and this is one of those questions that I should know because I feel like I should know it, but I don't pay that much attention. Is this sword important? Does it have a name? Does it show up anywhere that we should know? I feel like I should know this, and I don't.
Um, I don't know specifically. It hasn't been named in the show for sure.
It's a
Right.
Numenorian sword, right?
Correct. As far as we know, all of her stuff right now is
Except for
besides
the
the
dagger.
dagger, because she had nothing when
Yeah.
she went off the boat besides her dagger. It's the only thing she held on to. So it's a
Exactly.
Numenorian dagger, and which that doesn't mean it can't be a more ancient elvish sword that
Mhm.
was just there. Totally possible. But hey, it could also be the sword that Halbrand just made for all we know. Like we have no idea. Without, I mean, I hadn't thought about it, but I'd have to go back and see if we ever see this sword in the battle well enough that we have last episode to kind of tell, because we get some good shots of the one Halbrand made, and there was definitely some intricate artistry to it that it would be pretty easy to place.
Sure.
But I can't say I was looking specifically. I had the similar thought, but since we haven't spent a lot of time with it being clearly significant, like Elendil's when he got his felt like, hey, we're trying to show you that this is a sword that you might know, compared to this has just been a sword that's been used, is how I have been with it so far. And again, I could have missed something entirely.
I figured if anybody would catch it, it wasn't going to be me. That's why I asked. There may be nothing to catch.
Yeah, totally fair. I guess we'll find out.
Yep. All right. Next scene?
Yeah. Elendil argues with Beric, the horse. Beric wins and Elendil sets him free. He then laments helping Galadriel in the first place right as she shows up to camp. Theo searches through the camp, including the field hospital. Spoiler, Bronwyn lives, and Arondir. Elendil reports to the Queen Regent that the ships are ready to leave. Galadriel arrives. Miriel declares war on the orcs, and Galadriel pledges the elves as help. Elendil mourns.
So let's talk about Beric. Thoughts on the horse?
Another Lord of the Rings shout out scene for sure, I think, with what it seems like the horse running to go find its master and help it out. So very akin to Aragorn's horse before the Battle of Helm's Deep.
When he gets dragged off,
Yep.
and then they had, I could see that too. I think there's something to that. We're gonna have a similar scene next episode where the horse drags him out of the burned building, and I don't know if he's gonna do the one hand from the ground to lift himself up like Aragorn did or not, but I had a similar vibe that it's gonna be the one that saves him.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Because
thought it.
again,
Go ahead.
Isildur is not dead.
Yeah, that's pretty safe.
The whole argument between Elendil and the horse was really sad, like, because he just so desperately wants for Beric to come with him. Like, let me have one piece of my son left. You are my son's horse. You are like his bonded mate, kind of. And the horse just not having it. He's like, I got work to do, guy.
Yeah, you're stopping me from doing the thing that I need to do right now. Can you just leave it
Yeah, that
alone?
you want me to do, even if you don't know it.
Right, you're gonna be real happy with me.
Up until this point in the episode, because again, well, we're only on like what we're talking about as the third scene. It's really like 9 scenes in, so we had a lot going on in between. And I just kept thinking, Isildur's not dead, right? So somebody's got to go find him. And I thought it was going to be Elendil. It was like at some point, Elendil's going to break down and say, I have to go back and at least retrieve his body. I can't leave him there. Something, something, something. He would argue with the queen. But I like this way better, I think. I like the horse going off and riding into the sunset slash smoke to save Isildur. I think I'm totally down for that being how we end this next, end the season next week at the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Isildur's going to have some stuff to do after that too, either catching up with people and running through some orc camp to do so or something. There's going to be more that he does next episode, I believe. And we might even get Beric finding him opening scene. Like I would almost call that would be a good spot to start of, hey, let's just jump again, similar to what we did here, jump right to, okay, let's get to that moment. But they could ease in more with something with like Durin as well. But we'll
I'm going
find
to
out.
say that they'll end with that, and that'll be like where we end the season.
With Isildur being alive.
Scene.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't think it's a mid-episode reveal.
I think
It's either the first or the last.
yeah, we can speculate later. How about that? Well,
Fine. That's fine. We can speculate. So, any more with Beric and his quest for his master?
no, good on him. He's very easy to
Alright.
pick out now with that scar on his side.
Mhm.
Like that's very easy to like, hey, there's his trademark now. We know it's Beric.
Perfect. One more Lord of the Rings shout out with him running in across the fields. I very much had a Shadowfax
Mm-hmm.
kind of moment.
Sure.
Yes, it's a brown horse and not a silver horse, but just I like seeing the horse run free of a rider.
Mm-hmm.
Also, still a better horse ride than Galadriel's beach.
The
horse ride.
slow-mo one back in Numenor. Yeah.
Yes. Just do a nice normal horse running.
The ride that shall not be named.
Yep, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Great. Then Elendil starts lamenting and saying, like, "Oh, we should never have helped the elf. I should never have helped the elf." And here comes the elf.
Yeah.
Do you agree with him, or do you see where he's coming from?
I see why he's in pain, but I think he's losing his cool, which, I mean, he's not reacting like the queen is reacting, and he's not reacting like even Galadriel is reacting. He's kind of failing in a leadership role a little bit. I mean, he's done everything that he's been like tasked with doing, so not a total fail, but it seems like he's starting to let his emotions take over, which obviously you lost your son and a bunch of your crew members, so like it's tough, but I'd almost, for how strong he was portraying himself in the earlier episodes, I almost feel like he is a little bit malleable, and his strength is more of a front than actual emotional strength.
He's unraveling a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fair. It's he's keeping it better a little bit more than say Amos Diggory, but that's a totally different kind of thing as well.
Sure.
But yeah, it's interesting to see kind of throughout this whole scene how Elendil's like, we just got to get out of here. Like we need to be going, and kind of is really upset about the way that the decisions were made by Muriel as we move forward, for sure.
I'm gonna make a really weird. Sorry, Bailey, were you gonna say something? Okay, I'm gonna make a really weird connection here, and I will fully admit this is not my wheelhouse. This is not my jam. But I think
I'm
at
real
the
excited to see
end-
where this goes.
Okay, so if I think about the Battle of Blackwater, okay,
Yeah.
and I think about, I can't remember his name, the Onion Knight,
Yeah. Davos Seaworth. Yep.
Davos. Okay, I think at the beginning of the Feast of Crows, he is stranded
Yeah.
on an island.
Yep. And he's sunburnt. And he's super dehydrated. Yep.
And it's not that he is despairing because he's lost. He is despairing because he watched his sons die in that battle.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely true.
That's Elendil right now.
I can make that. That's not a major leap at all. I think there are some real connections there for sure. I mean, It's a little different that he didn't see it and he's just going off of the word of Valendil and which is completely reliable from what there's no reason that they would be hiding that from him, but
Right.
he's in that post-traumatic, just lost my son.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I gotta stay alive, but man, this is ripping me apart kind of thing.
It just is so interesting. I mean, I totally get it. I'm not hating on him for being emotional about losing his son. I just, he like immediately just wants to leave, right? Like he doesn't have any interest in trying to form a party to go, like Melissa brought up earlier, like try to go find him, or it just seems so weird that he's like trying to run away so quickly.
Rather than like running to
Yeah.
try to find out, like I think I don't have any problem with the showing of the emotion. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's good to see, he's a real person
Yeah.
too. But it's a little, I'm a little surprised, like you mentioned, that he's choosing inaction. He's choosing to flee to get away from it as opposed to taking action to do something about it, or at least to prove. Go ahead, Bailey.
Yeah, he's like a big pouty baby about the whole thing. Like, I get, obviously it's emotional, but I regret ever taking her off of that, out of the water and onto my ship, and we should have never come here, and let's just leave and pretend like it never ever happened. Like, that's not gonna solve your problems. Let's like take a breather and be logical, and go try to send a rescue mission and see, even if it's not Isildur, like there might still be other people that you could rescue that are like trapped underneath buildings or something.
That horse could still be running on fire. Save it. Or the guy that was crawling on the ground. He could still be crawling, man. Give him a shot. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of rescuing happening, especially on his part, even
Right.
at the beginning of all this.
Agreed.
So Galadriel comes in. We just sort of see her arrive, and really we cut to Theo doing a tent-by-tent search.
Yep.
Anyone shocked that his mother is alive?
Nope.
Nope. Not right here.
Nope.
I would have been shocked
No.
if they actually offed one of them. I'll be honest. They played it up well enough, but I'm glad they didn't dawdle too much with just getting to the point. Like, they
Mhm.
spent a good amount of time doing it. I'm glad it wasn't. There was no. I'm glad they got to a resolution within this scene and not push it off to another scene, because we just don't need it halfway through the episode like this. Is where I was. This is actually like 3/4 of the way through the episode. I feel like that we wouldn't need that. I mean, there are bigger things going on than Bronwyn. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I like her, but I don't think we needed to draw this out further than we did. They
Mhm.
got to the point. I'm glad they got the resolution.
I think when one of them dies, because it is inevitable, we will see it. It
Yeah,
won't
and
be.
they're not going to die off screen.
No.
That's not going to happen.
So I am glad that Theo had to spend at least a little bit of time with the idea that he could have lost his
Mhm.
mom, because Theo has a lot of growing up to do,
Yep.
a lot, and we've been saying that there's a lot of space to mature, and I think he had an experience that's going to help him grow up a little bit with a, ironically, really good mentor to kind of guide him through. So because Galadriel, especially in that state of defeat that she was in and the regrouping, that was a good person to help him talk him through, again, as a commander, as opposed to just somebody of judgment or, no, I don't care. No, as a commander, I'm going to give you some advice
Mhm.
and tell you why. I think that will help him a lot, even though his mom is still alive. I'm hoping to see him grow into himself because of this experience of loss that he almost had, which he did. I mean, he lost his home, so that is definitely a loss, but he keeps
Yeah.
his mom for a little while, right?
I expect that we will see that from him, and like his time with Galadriel, she definitely stoked some inspiration and self respect. I think
Value.
self value in him by, letting him play the I'm a soldier. I'm not just a peasant boy with no home. I've got something to fight for, and, I can do this. And I fully expect to see a time jump like early in the next season. I think it's going to be, I could be wrong, but I think that we're going to get some sort of time jump. So I have a feeling that we will be probably switching actors on Theo at some point. Maybe not next season, but I think depending on how long it takes for them to get to the next time jump. If it is next season, I think we'll get an older Theo for sure.
I can see that. Age him
Yeah,
up
at
a
some
bit.
point, it's probably inevitable.
They did just start filming, so we could probably find out who's
Yeah.
cast if there's any difference. But
I
usually
do
that's
like the actor though. The kid actor is pretty good. I don't know.
he's grown on me.
Yeah.
Like his character has grown on me over time too. I found him really annoying, but I think it was supposed to be vague to whether he was going to be a good guy or not. And I think that's still open. I think it could be much more tragic if he does go down a dark route from here, which could be a great story element. I mean, right? But he's really turned a corner for me on how much I respect him as a person, just in the things that we've seen with
Right.
him. Where before I would have been fine. It was like episode 4. I was like, he could just die right now. That'd be fine. See ya. Like now, I think I'd be a little, more bothered by it.
I think he's got a lot of potential as a character.
Potential that I didn't see earlier on.
Really? See, I had the feeling early on. I liked Theo. I was always Team Theo.
I know, that's good. I'm glad someone was.
So you win that point. Point, Riley. Good job.
Thanks.
I care now. Remember the first couple, I was like, I don't care that he's on screen, one way or the other. And now I am invested. I am a new convert to Team Theo, which is why
Theoism.
Right. Like now it's okay, Bronwyn, she's fine, but really I want to make sure Theo is got a good arc going. So.
Any theories?
John and Ghost in the chat just said Theo is Arrow Illuvator confirmed, so which is like big #1 hyper creator in the galaxy of this. He's like the creator of creators. Like Arrow is the guy. Illuvatar. That's funny. I'm in on that one. Yep, for sure, John. I'm with you, no doubt. I still think he's gonna end up being some important human character that will be wraithed. I do think he'll end up as a ring wraith. That's
or go ahead.
No, you and Melissa, because I've got a wild one.
I was gonna say, or he ends up like being the ancestor of the line of stewards of Gondor, not the kings of Gondor, but like the stewards, servants of Gondor.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Which is basically where you get to Boromir.
Yeah. My theory is Halbrand, Sauron, 100%. So Southlands need a king. Theo becomes the king of the Southlands that fights to take back their land, ends up settling somewhere, becomes one of the ring wraiths.
Absolutely in play.
Yeah,
especially
yes.
With how much respect Bronwyn got for kind of taking things over, I think there would not be that far of a leap for people to be like, after Bronwyn bites it, hey, Theo would be kind of that next heir apparent in a lineage that's not there currently, but could be. I makes a lot easy. That's an easy jump, narrative jump to get there. So pretty valid in my opinion. Good theory.
Thanks.
I like that one. All right. Other things in this. Arondir's alive. He bows to Galadriel.
Gives a hug to Theo. It was nice. It was a nice moment.
I liked that.
The hug was taken. There was no giving of the hug. Theo,
yeah.
For it.
He accepted and stayed in the space of a hug that was given at him.
Was anyone surprised by the hug?
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Between Theo and
Yes.
Why? Where's there a surprise in there?
Just because in the first episode, I mean, I know we had the whole Arondir saved Theo extravaganza episode, but like Theo originally didn't take a liking to Arondir. Like he was like, "Who's this elf talking to my mom?" Like he was just with the townsfolk. Obviously, we see his come around to Arondir a lot, but like it almost seemed like missing a family member, which is just it seems like a big jump. But I mean, he's a kid; he doesn't have that much to attach to in the world, and so I get that might make sense. But I wasn't expecting the hug for Arondir.
Bailey, where are you at on that?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either, but I definitely see how like Arondir is something that's familiar. So even though he wasn't necessarily a fan of his to begin with, like it's something from his home and it's something that his mom cares about. And I think kind of by not default necessarily, but he's coming around to the fact that Arondir is important in his life.
Yeah, I think for me, I just saw that kind of developing over the last couple episodes when they had the shooting the arrow moment, you know, like, hey, aim higher. Like for me, that was already they got there, and then they all did get through this battle together, right? So I guess for me, yeah, it's a jump, it's a confirmation that it seemed it was going to be them more on the same page. And so for me, it was just nice. I wasn't terribly surprised by it, but I can't say I would have written it that way myself. It was just nice to see because it was good, you know. And I like how Arondir was kind of like hesitant. He was like, "Okay, all right, yeah, I'm in," and he does, and it was good. It was a good emotional moment. Good bro hug.
All right. Next part of the scene after a bit of broing, right? Bros being
It
bros.
was, yep.
Bros. Lord. Okay, sorry. We start packing up. Numenor is like, I'm out. But before Elendil can get the queen on the boat, Galadriel shows up, much to Elendil's chagrin.
hmm
And Muriel, like, I was typing this as I was watching the first time. I've only, right, it's behind this week. So I watch it once, I'm typing as I go. And Galadriel shows up and, you know, Muriel's all, I do not waste your pity on me, right? And I was like, ooh, she's going to make a speech. I see a speech coming and she stood. And I was like, ooh, okay, here it is. So I started typing. So I had her name ready. I'm like, okay. Because I knew it. Something was going to happen. I did not expect the war on the orcs, but I appreciate her determination.
Oh, there's buy-in for sure,
Mhm.
right? I mean, now she's got personal costs into this, right? And Elendil's kind of looking at it as a sunk cost, right? He's just saying, well, we tried that, didn't work. Let's go home and let's just never deal with this again. But she's the one saying, yeah, we chose to be here and do this. We're going to see it through, and we're going to be even more prepared next time now that we have a better idea of what we're up against. I like that she just goes right for the jugular and says, we are doing this, like, for sure. So it's good stuff.
And Galadriel says, I'll rally my troops. We'll come play too.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
You think there's going to be hesitation from Lyndon?
Oh, 100%.
There she goes again, speaking for the elves.
100%.
I mean, as the oldest elf, pretty much, she should be able to, but you know, they don't let her. So, Riley, talk about that. Why are you like?
Because
No.
she abandoned her post. They think she's in Valar Morghulis or whatever it's called.
Valinor.
Valinor. Yeah.
Valar Morghulis.
Yeah.
Town.
So they
All elves must die.
That's a theme right now.
she's gonna show, and I'll get more into it on the next scene that we talk about. But she's not bringing anything positive to the elves, other than the fact that maybe they have Numenor on their side.
And confirmation that all of this is going
Yeah,
on.
but they already don't believe her.
Well, but there's a lot more proof going on right now.
But who's going to prove it with her?
I think
We'll talk about that in the next scene.
Yeah.
But yes,
it's a totally different situation now.
Maybe.
Let's move on
It's
to the next scene.
almost
Oh, go ahead.
it's
Bailey,
almost like Voldemort being back. And it's like Harry says he's back.
Yeah.
No one believes Harry. But now other people have seen that Voldemort is back. So I think there will be more legitimacy to what Galadriel's been trying to tell everybody this entire time.
Unless the Linden elves take any human that might be there as like a house elf. But that's just a human. No elf has seen. She needs to take a Rondir with
That's
her.
exactly what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. All right.
It's a good point. JD says Halbrand's going with her right now. So
Well, let's talk about that. Let's jump to that next scene because
Yep.
technically we haven't seen him yet this episode.
right.
Galadriel and Arondir watch the Númenóreans sail away. Bronwyn and Arondir plan to travel to Palagir at the mouth of the Anduin. Galadriel is taken to Halbrand, who isn't dead yet. Galadriel prepares to take him to elvish healers. They ride off as Theo cheers with Galadriel's sword.
Not quite dead yet. Feeling better.
Oh, I mean, once again, Halbrand is one of those that isn't going to die off screen.
Sure.
He's not going to die. He's going to still be alive with Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Ringwraith or something. It's fine. But the fact that they put it off to the very end, it's the second to last scene in the whole show. That's one they drew out a lot longer.
Yeah. I just ever since I think Luke said it last episode, I'm 100% convinced he's Sauron, like without a doubt. I think that's it.
There's further visual evidence in last episode that we didn't even talk about of how his armor is full of rings. Like all his clothing just has rings all over. Not just like, oh, chainmail. It's like a consistent element in his stuff. But that's where I'm at. So I think it's really interesting seeing them go off to the elves to start potentially getting him in good with them to become a greater deceiver moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
That's just where I'm at. I think
I
there's some
know.
other good options. I think there are, certainly. The Oathbreaker King, you could absolutely convince me that that's something that could be worked into.
And I mean, still team, lead Ringwraith.
Yeah,
Right?
Witch
Witch
King.
King.
Yep.
He could absolutely be that too.
My big thing here, it seems like Arondir's just about to go take like a vacation. Like he abandoned his post with the elves, kind of. His elf commander comes back and sees him there with nobody else, just a bunch of humans, and then is just like, yeah, where are you going? So he's got like a leave of absence. Like I fully expected Galadriel to be like, all right, we're going back to Linden. Like you did your thing here. Good job. Like we need to go tell people about this. And they will believe you because I technically am not on this planet anymore. So I'm happy for Arondir, but like, okay, you're just gonna go with them. You're just gonna start your life with the
What's he do
humans.
now?
Yeah,
So my one twist on that is I think Arondir is a Sindarian elf, right? Like an elf who's never left Middle Earth. He's not a Noldorian elf. So I don't know if he necessarily answers to Galadriel's elf strand.
sure. He certainly respects her.
As you would respect a general of any peaceful neighboring
Sure,
nation.
a different branch of the military, like an army soldier respecting a
Right.
marine general or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
And I might, in the moment, if we're battling together, look to you to lead, but you don't give me my marching orders once the battle's over.
Yeah.
Even though she
Fair.
probably could.
Go ahead, Bailey.
That's entirely fair that, he doesn't have to answer to her because she's not who told him to be there in the first place.
Well, I mean, currently, his current standing orders were to leave the guard tower with his whole company and go back to wherever. We don't exactly know where he's going back to. It definitely doesn't seem necessarily like it has to be Lyndon and Gil-galad, but that was also right after Gil-galad kind of banished our good friend Galadriel.
Well,
So it seemed-
remember, sorry to interrupt. Remember when he's talking about, like, when Arondir's post gets orders to return, that's right after Gil-galad said there's no threat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. Is he's pulling the troops, is what it felt like to me, to where he might be still from Lyndon. At least that's where his orders are coming from. Which she's the northern commander, not the southern commander. We don't know anything about that, but it's just interesting that it's the only group of elves we've seen, and they haven't really talked about the other areas necessarily. But yeah, it's just not his direct line of authority. I think is, but similar branch, similar area, just not confirmed. But just because of that timeline of when
Yeah.
they did get pulled, it was right after Gil-galad.
That's what I
kind
was
of made
working under the assumption of.
That's where I was as well. I'm not saying it's valid or
Mhm.
100% confirmed or anything, but there's that.
For all anyone knows, like, his whole troop of elves might be dead, you know? I mean, they were supposed to fall out. So maybe he's operating under the assumption that everyone thinks he's dead.
Yeah, I
Well-
mean, it seemed like a big group of them, a large group of his buddies got caught by
Captured.
Adar.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it seemed like to me, that, when they had left the tower, that they got captured. Like the whole company is what it kind of felt
Yeah.
like. And we saw the only ones that we knew named be killed in that moment. But, there could have been others that are still being held captive, for all we know. Not that they were ever named on screen, so it'd be hard to like, hey, you were also a guy that was on my team, and I'd feel a
Hey,
little.
Jimmy!
there's Jimandir.
I'm just waiting for like season 4 when Arondir finally reports back to his homeland and it's Lee Pace who shows up again, and and Orlando Bloom's in the back and they're like, where have you been? And end of the whole show.
There it is. Yep.
Because Arondir shows back up to the two of them and says, well, I'm back, much like Sam at the end of Lord of the Rings, and that's my prediction for the end of the series. It's fine. We find out that and we mentioned a little bit, Halbrand is alive,
Mm-hmm.
but he needs elvish healing. Anybody else think just get that guy some king's foil and he'll mash it up and he can rub it in his own little wound and he'd be fine? Just me, right? The flower, it's got to grow somewhere near there.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking during that whole thing. But no, we're gonna go see some elves. So Halbrand, but is able to ride on a horse.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
like, really? I don't know. He's like bedridden.
Yeah.
But he can go ride a horse, and like,
that can walk out on his own 2 legs.
they take off pretty quick. Like they're not like, hey, let's just walk on it. Like they're going. Like that's a
Ah.
trot. Like
Like it hurt. It hurt watching that.
yeah.
Oh.
A bit of a stretch.
Yeah. Between that and Bronwyn being totally fine when she's like hugging her son and not having the pain in her shoulder from her very recent
Right.
arrow wound.
Yeah. That was what, like
Uh,
9 hours ago?
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Like one sunrise ago. I don't know.
Well, they had a day
Well,
with Theo and Galadriel. They spent a night together, so it was more than that. But yeah.
yeah. Either way, not a very long time for a arrow through your through your shoulder chest to be not a
Mm.
cumbersome
Even
thing.
she looked like surprisingly clean for all they just went through. Like,
She's got that
did
blue
you have
dress.
time to
Yeah, she's all cleaned up.
clothes are yes.
Yeah, blue dress back in. It's yeah.
I try really hard to enjoy the show, but as it is, and just sort of not worry about these little nitpicky things. But those things were bothering me in this part. Can we just be, especially with how dirty and messy it was at the beginning of this episode, we cannot get that clean that fast.
Like
That many
Galadriel's totally clean. Like
Yeah.
just returning to camp.
I assume they hit a stream, maybe
Must have.
wash off a little bit.
Yeah.
It just rolls right off the armor.
It's what it is. They've got
Magic
Ash
armor.
X on there. They've got
It's like OxyClean, but for lava ash.
the lava ash. It just beads up and falls off the armor, so it's okay.
Rolls right away.
Yeah, there it is. Ash
Yeah.
repellent.
Then the last thing I just want to mention that Theo leads the cheer as Halbrand and Galadriel ride off. I think that ties really well with what we've been talking about this whole time with Theo's arc and the growth that's happening with him in
Mhm.
there. Again, point rightly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he definitely kind of feels like one of the voices of the people now, especially with Waldrig gone too,
Mhm.
right? Like there really doesn't seem to be anybody else taking up that mantle besides what we've seen Bronwyn and Arondir do a bit, but that was more just for preparation. This is more for like rally cry. And like not everyone can get away with being the guy that starts the slow clap at the basketball game, right? Not everyone can do that, and it seems like he's earned that position.
Mhm.
At least, I mean, clearly it works, but not everyone can just do a rah rah and everyone's gonna buy in. He gets major cheerleader points here for sure.
Yeah.
Go team. Last call on the Southlands.
Excited to see Halbrand turn into Sauron here soon.
I still love him. It's fine.
You're supposed to.
I know. And I do. I have been suckered good, and I'm totally okay with that.
He feels fair and or he looks fair and feels fouler. That's all I'll say.
Ready to have your heart broken.
It's fine. I can handle it. I'm not Elendil.
True. You're not.
All right, let's go find some Harfoots.
To the Harfoots. Our Harfoot friends finally catch up to the rest of their tribe. They find confusion from the fire rocks that have rained down. Sadok sets off to ask the stranger for help, but he is already working on a tree. It doesn't work. Gee dang it.
So it's been a while since we've seen our Harfoot friends. And the first thing that happens is Nori's family finally catches up with the tribe.
Yeah.
You made it.
Was anybody else surprised that they made it back to the big group of everybody?
Nah. They knew where
Not
they were going.
particularly.
Okay. I honestly, it was like a 50-50 shot in my brain. It was like, maybe they won't. Maybe it'll just not work. You know, they're going to go off and do their own little thing and realize like, hey, we don't need to follow these crazy people. We can forge our own path. But no, we don't do that here, right? We stay on track. It's fine. I like the conversation that the Harfoots have. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the fire rock that rained down. And Sadok has heard of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mountains that shoot out fire rocks, right? I mean, he says it hasn't happened in a couple thousand years, but from what he's heard, through his whatever knowledge base that's built up through Harfoot tradition, definitely seems to be only something that happens when evil is, on the rise again. And so that's the first indication we see. Well, not the first. We've had them talking since the very beginning that things feel a little differently. Things are going weird, and they just only had the perspective of, well, we had the star crash down and it was the stranger. So like we thought everything had to do with him because that's their current purview, right? But it's almost seems like maybe they're feeling like there's something bigger going on in the world, right? Because clearly the stranger has been with them. Like he couldn't have done this. So yeah, little different for their current perspective, I think. Obviously, the wolves have been kind of out of control as well, and other parts of orchards were not flowering and fruited like they expected on the way here. So it's been a struggle on this migration, on this migrate thumb. But it's interesting to see that they're bringing maybe there's a big world evil going on, which we have been seeing happen. So I like that connection over for the first time.
I would agree. I I just have a sarcastic comment. I don't have anything thoughtful to add. So if anybody has anything thoughtful to add first.
Mm.
Perfect. Okay, so my sarcastic comment is as I'm sitting here trying to write like a lit review for a class that I'm in and I'm doing and I'm struggling with research. I was like, I would like to know who Sadoc's researcher is and where he is storing his vast amount of knowledge that he can just pull out at any time because I would really like that level of access to background knowledge at all times that he seems to have. He sure knows a lot more than what you expect from Harfoots. Is kind of my big takeaway,
Yeah,
which was not nice, I know.
Yeah. Who's feeding him the information?
And he keeps saying, "Oh, my grandsire, oh, my this," but I don't know, right? I almost feel like he's in the know of something from somewhere. Is that just me? Am I reading too far into that?
Well, and especially because the Harfoots keep to themselves. So when you're trying to hide and you just, you do your migration and you set up your camp and you stay for however long it is, like where are you going outside of your camp to find out other things that are going on in the world?
Because I think he is.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him have a bunch of scrolls and things, right? So, I mean, I'm sure there's been more interaction with either humans or elves in the past, right? That almost seems to have happened at some point, especially because he knew stuff about seemingly Numenor, right? He had mentioned something previously that was clearly Numenorian, and so if we take that information plus, yeah, they do keep to themselves, so it probably is something very specifically handed down, like, hey, you need to be the historian or the storyteller that passes these things along. And we see him trying to share some of those things over time, but he is holding quite a bit back as well until he's got some kind of person to transition it to, whether it's someone we know or someone we don't know. We'll have to find out over time. I don't think he's going to be with us a ton longer. I don't know. I don't know if this current adventure they're going on is going to go well for him. We'll get there, I'm sure. But at some point, there's going to need to be a transition of his role in the group to somebody else. And I guess we might learn more about how that happens at that point.
Sadok is Tom Bombadil
Hmm.
secretly.
Secretly. What if he's Treebeard?
I was going to say, what if he's an Ent?
Yeah. We have seen an Ent first episode, right? Haven't, and he even mentions. Well, I don't know if it's in this exact song, or part, but oh no, it's a little bit later. Next scene, I think. Trees don't talk. Some do. That's an Ent reference, right? I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go talk to some Ents.
That he has some mad knowledge skills. Oh, well, and John mentioned in the chat, and we talked about this way in the back. He knew about Elrond's dad becoming a star, right?
Right.
Have you heard of stars coming down and being people? Well, I've heard of people going up and becoming stars, but I haven't heard the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
How are you hearing all? Okay,
He's
Good
subscribing
stories.
to the Harfoot Daily Times.
Ah, it must
he's
be
the
it.
only one with the Wi-Fi password though, because nobody else is getting it. Bad. All right. The stranger is talking to a tree. He's trying to get the tree, but the tree kind of crashes on Nori.
And Dilly, little sister, as well.
Yes. Thoughts on that moment?
It seems like the stranger is just having a lot of bad luck when he tries to help them out. And I think a lot of it is him learning what his powers are, and not knowing the extent of it. But it just seems like he's always willing to help, but is put in bad situations fairly often.
He hasn't really had a great opportunity to try to ease back into whatever skills he innately has,
Mhm.
right? And he's definitely trying, but there's no way to like get the training wheels off it. They're just saying, "Hey, we're throwing you down this hill. Can you do something about it?" And sometimes it doesn't work out so well. I mean, this one does work, but it's not the instant fix that
Yeah.
everyone, even him, was kind of hoping for.
Mhm.
And it almost like appears to be more damaging than the good that we see it bring a few scenes later. But just, not only did it not work, but he could have killed Nori in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Nori, who's already trying to distance herself from him from the last time we saw her and the
Mm-hmm.
ice hand thing, and she hasn't kicked him out or anything yet, but there's definitely a barrier
Mm-hmm.
between the two of them, and now here's one more thing in her arsenal of excuses of why he maybe shouldn't be here, and why I'm not going to trust him completely. But it was, I mean, I don't know if they realize it's not intentional. I think most of them realize it's not intentional, that he was trying to help and it didn't. But I think Nori is storing this away of, hmm, maybe, or oh, look, even if he's trying, it just keeps hurting us.
Mhm.
And it almost seems to be pushing her back more to the traditional Harfoot mentality of, regardless of how things can be, maybe it's better just to stay safe and stay away from those perils,
Mhm.
regardless of, the potential upside. There could be dangerous things to even get there.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing, especially right here, right? Because we see those same terrified eyes from Nori looking at him again, and it kind of breaks his heart, right? And he's like, I can't even communicate to you, like, one, how sorry I am, and two, like, I just want to help. And I think she knows that, and he knows that, but the lack of communication ability is really making this tough on him. So he kind of realizes the writing's on the wall here a
Mhm.
little.
All right, next scene.
The stranger and Sadok discuss the nearby Big Folk encampment and his search for stars. A small flower sprouts for the tree. Nori gives the stranger an apple for his journey. Nori recognizes she is just a Harfoot.
This is one of those scenes that was one of those really short, where not a lot happens, but a lot of important beats are hit. We see the stranger prepare to leave. We see Nori give him a gift of sending off without it being an emotional thing. She's like, here you go, right? Like, I'm helping you, but I'm really not getting too invested anymore. And her heart, I don't want to say breaks, but her heart hardens at the end of this scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there's, I don't know. What other thoughts do you have? That Stock knows about the encampment, that Nori is just sort of setting him off. How are you feeling?
It's a little sad, I think, but overall, I think you kind of said it. There's not much that does really happen in this scene other than just kind of setting off on a new chapter for him and the Harfoots.
Bailey.
Yeah, I feel like Nori's maybe a little jaded by what's turning out with the stranger. Like she just wanted to do good and she wanted to help, and it's kind of consistently backfired on her over and over again, even though they both have good intentions and want to help one another. Like to the point where she's wishing that she had never helped him and realizes that maybe Harfoot should just keep to themselves.
Does anyone agree to that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I'm interested to see where he goes. I think it sucks that he's got to go, but I get everyone's side. Even he feels resigned to this might not be safe because he still struggles with perils, right? And am I one of the people that even without trying to, I can easily accidentally hurt them, and that's not what I want. So the best thing for me to do is take myself away, which is rough, but it's it's him calling out how dangerous it is for them for him to be with them currently.
Mhm.
Regardless of the other potential benefits, I think all of them, like I said, there's a bit of writing on the wall of this might not be a great fit right now.
yeah, and I think especially the place where this happens, this is scene 5, and at this point there's some stuff happening in Casa Doom that's really sad, and we just found out about Muriel having lost her eyesight. Like, there's just a lot of loss and giving upness happening at this point in the episode in general, which I think if we had just watched the through line of Harfoots, I would have been less emotionally invested. But I think the pacing of the episode and how they cut together the different journeys people were taking, it made me care a little more than I maybe necessarily would have, because I haven't always been Team Harfoot in the show. But I did feel for the stranger.
Yep, I agree. Feels like a very penultimate episode for a season.
Hmm.
Every episode, every season we have one of those. And this season, it just happens to be this one.
That happens to be this episode. Next scene. He left with an apple. Good for him. Nice. Nori wakes to Poppy singing and eating an apple. Nori looks out and sees the tree, not just healed, but full of fruit. Poppy sees a big, strange footprint and runs, leaving her basket to float to our old creepy friends. The Harfoots hide while evil McCreepy and gang check out the apple tree at night. Nori rushes out to tell Evilly to head to a different direction to find the stranger. Largo protects his daughter with a torch, but big baddie evil McFace puts that out with a touch of their hand and blows it away, setting fire to the whole clan encampment.
Apple tree?
Good stuff. I like apples.
How about them apples?
How about them
Nutrition.
apples? Yeah.
Well, I got a number. How do you like them apples? There were lots. It was more than just a tree full too. So apparently the stranger's powers are one of those like take two and then call me in the morning, not just immediate results kind of a thing.
I made a joke about Sadok earlier, but I could see the stranger being a Tom Bombadil figure just from the way that his powers are kind of manifesting. Seems like he has got very in touch with nature abilities. So I'd be that'd be my first vote for him. And it's cool to see his power start to grow, I guess, and like him to be able to nourish the land so well.
I mean, maybe lava rock is also full of nutrients, so that helps.
Maybe a little high in sulfur. Just it might be.
Don't look a gift apple tree in the face there, Luke.
Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Do we think that maybe if the stranger and the Harfoots end up reunited and sticking together, that his powers could help them to not have to migrate so often? That they could actually just like set down roots and
Maybe on
call
the
somewhere
banks of
home?
the Anduin at some point and have a homestead.
I think so.
Maybe dig some holes in the sides of hills. I'd say that's completely valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really hoping the stranger is a good guy. That would be lovely, because he just seems like he has such a good heart.
Yeah, my money's on him being a good guy in the long run. Certainly, that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no, don't think so, Melissa.
I think he's Sauron.
Nah.
Mm-mm.
I do. And I think the evil McEvilies are coming after him to give him the lowdown on, hey, by the way, you forgot, but you're the guy. We're going to help you remember you're the guy.
So this is something that hasn't been said in the show yet, but those three characters have names.
What?
I've only seen it when I came across an article talking about, and it's basically named. We only know it just from the cast talking about it at some point, but they are called the Nomad, the Dweller, and the Ascetic. The Ascetic. So hasn't been used in the show, so a little bit of a spoiler there, but it's specifically just the three of them,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's not, as far as we know, anybody else in this group that hasn't just been on screen. So this just because this is the first time we really get a lot of direct interaction with them. I just found that out today. So yeah, they're being really coy about what these characters are, right? If we're going to start talking about them. And you know, Poppy clearly like sees this footprint, knows it's not just the stranger's footprint because she would recognize his print at this point, right?
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't wear those kinds of shoes. He's not a Keds kind of guy, but clearly,
Those are the wrong choice.
yeah, she knows all
Stranger
the.
doesn't wear Crocs.
But she quickly just like goes into Harfoot mode. Like this is bad. Something bad is close, and her instinct is 100% right here, and yeah, we see them kind of walking in the distance as the Harfoots are hiding, and Nori jumps out to redirect them, right? Melissa, that's a pretty big sigh right
Sorry.
there.
My eyes hurt from the roll. It went so far back in my head. It just say nothing. Do nothing.
So you're saying the do nothing option was here.
And that was the right choice. She didn't make
She
it.
just talked about how she wanted to, or how she should just be a Harfoot. And then she doesn't do the Harfoot thing.
And all she had to do to be a Harfoot was nothing.
Clearly, she still cares about the stranger.
Right.
She pretends that she doesn't, but she can't just let them go after him.
Yeah, she's trying to harden her heart against it, knowing what's in her mind currently the right choice for all of their family and folk, but she can't let go of her true nature of knowing that she trusts him, you know, and that it's a dangerous thing for him to be out there now seeing this, because it clearly looks to her like they're looking after him. They're trying to find him because they inspect the tree and clearly seem to connect a dot or two. And so she decides to go into save him mode. That doesn't go super well for our har-footed friends.
Bad call. Just bad. It's just bad. It's bad.
It's bad.
I
It's really,
was
really
not proud of her in that moment.
And then more bad things happen when Largo, trying to, protect his daughter, it's like, I'll burn you. And that backfires.
At least he brought a weapon.
Real bad.
I mean,
A for effort.
right. And I would say 9 times out of 10, threatening somebody with a torch of flaming fire is not a bad thing to have.
I think that was his walking stick that he had set on fire. It looked like it the way when after the guy or the evil person, evil McFace, I think is what we called him, grabs it. It looks like it's the handle from his walking stick that he was using for the past couple episodes.
Sure.
I could see that.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about what groups could use what certain types of magic, because obviously the fire abilities from these guys should be a giveaway maybe if we don't know anything about them, but
As
no
far as I
idea.
know, we don't have any indication on this.
Yeah.
unless there's a real deep cut somewhere in like the unfinished tales or something. Like I'm not sure at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
not an obvious one for sure.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They don't fit any of the beings who we've been dealing with all these years.
Mm-hmm.
So
It'll be interesting to find out what their goal is.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't know that they're nefarious
Yeah.
until that moment. Like, with the setting the camp on fire, that's not a good look. But I mean,
I would say their Slim Shady look is also not a good look, but that's just
I completely agree. But we don't really know that. That's judging their books by their covers.
and also by their setting on fire of everything around them.
Like I
They're
said,
not really a
until
good-
that moment, we didn't have any clue. They were just walking around looking for the stranger. Nothing wrong with
So
that.
it's not their fault that the music that played every time they were on screen was ominous and scary. They didn't create the soundtrack.
They weren't in the room with Howard Shore after the fact, you know? They don't know.
That could have been misdirection.
What
Yeah.
we really want are some good beats, man. Just some beats in the background. What's with this ominous stuff? That's so funny. Anything else about evilly? They go away. They also can transport.
Yeah.
Like, we
They,
didn't
like,
mention
teleported.
that, you know. Where he tells them, "Hey, go this way." She like blinks, and then all of a sudden they're behind her. So that's another weird thing that I haven't seen happen.
Another level of creepy.
Right? The only character that I can even remotely come up with moves as fast as that. Tom Bombadil can move quickly, not teleporting, but very quickly. And Bjorn.
I was going to throw a Bjorn reference as well. Maybe not for them necessarily, but more for stranger potential.
So I'm just saying, like, I'm not necessarily that the three creepy guys are either of
They're
those.
just in a ballpark where those are the only types of creatures that are completely different and completely powerful in their own ways, like this.
Yes. So maybe it's that other miscellaneous category that they fall
Phil
in.
Bombadil. It's his brother. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Next Harfoot scene where nobody died, so that's good.
The Harfoots clean up after the fire. Largo gives a rousing speech about facing perils, and we just keep walking. More Harfoots put on a brave face, but Nori determines to help her friend, the stranger, and Poppy is going with her, and Marigold. Malva convinces Sadek to join them as a pathfinder.
I think this is a cool scene for Largo, especially since we just kind of talked about how Sadok's time seemingly coming to an end, potentially, we're assuming. I think if anybody is going to step up as the leader of the Harfoots, obviously Malva has some of the know-how that Sadak has, but I think Largo potentially could be a good choice for leader. Just the way that he speaks out and is tied to the traditional Harfoot mentality. So
Yeah, it was this scene that I was kind of alluding to a little earlier, where I think there's going to have to be some kind of transition of leadership. Not necessarily saying the Sadek has to die coming up soon, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that's kind of the way things go, and Largo ends up becoming that pathfinder, that leader of the group. But then there's the question of, does he get to then go and read all of the stuff that Sadek has written down? Like, does he become that knowledgeable member too, that knowledgeable elder, or is that something else going on? I don't know. Those are just some questions that I've got currently about where we could be going with it.
sure.
I'm glad that he does decide to go with them, you know, and he's, hey, if we're going to do this, let's do this, because he kind of already developed, at least he's spoken to the stranger, you know, just earlier in this episode, and they kind of got along, you know. It was kind of a tough meeting, but they both kind of saw where the other one was, and, you know, they came to terms at that moment. They have some kind of relationship.
I think also after Sadok seeing the actual fruit of the stranger's labor, that he has more of a intellectual desire to have him come back to the group.
Yeah, they've kind of taken him in at this point and realized that he is a beneficial member to their clan, and he's one of us, and we need to go help him.
Mm-hmm.
I was just in my head chanting, one of us.
us.
One of us. So, remember how we talked about how there's a lot of scenes in the show that reminded us of the Lord of the Rings movies? This one was two of them for me. First, when Nori's like, I'm going to save my friend, and Poppy's like, and I'm going with you.
Mm-hmm.
I got, flashbacks of Frodo in the boat going, I'm going alone. And Sam going, of course you are. And I'm going with you.
Mm-hmm.
But then Marigold's like, and I'm going. And then eventually Sadok's like, I'm going. So we jumped from the boat scene to the Rivendell scene when
The
out of the
fellowship.
shadows. Right. So, and not so much with Gandalf and Aragorn, but when Sam and Merry and Pippin all kind of show up,
Yep.
like, I'm going too. And then Pippin's like, where are we going? It's kind of, that's almost like what Sadok is pulling this role. It's fine.
We
I'll
need
figure out
somebody
where we're going.
with brains on this quest thing.
Yes. So I liked that because it's just the feeling, that same feeling in those moments. I also really appreciate the relationship we get from Malva and Sadok one more time. Because as Malva's like, you should go. If only they had a pathfinder to help them, then maybe they would be successful. And I wrote this down. I actually rewound it like 3 times to make sure I got it right. He was like, Malva, just once, it would be grand if you weren't right all the time. That's just an old married couple line. I felt that in my heart very deeply.
Felt familiar?
Yes, as I say, with Bob sitting literally next to me watching a football game silently. He's doing a good job.
He's
We
doing a
have a
great
bet.
job.
Mm-hmm. It's fine. I'm looking. He's not looking at me. We're okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else about the Harfoots?
No, some
Mm-mm.
interesting stuff. I think we kind of called this out a while back that Nori's the kind of Harfoot that's going to end up going on her own adventure.
Mhm.
I was a little surprised when more people jumped in other than just Poppy. Like, I
Mhm.
think that was what I would have expected of just being those two.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see this little Harfoot fellowship do a job.
They
you
gotta
know,
have characters to kill off.
it's going to be a tough trip, a tough venture for them, I think.
All right. Let's head down to Khazad-dûm.
Elrond negotiates with the Dwarven King. The King and Durin debate. Durin wants to aid his friend, but the King doesn't want to risk all of his people to save the elves. Disa doesn't like the message. Elrond and Durin part ways. Durin throws the mithril rock in sadness, which lands near the deceased leaf and cures it.
So let's start with Elrond negotiating with the Dwarven King. King Durin III. I feel like Elrond was very open and honest in his. It's not the Elrond we saw early on in the season,
Mm-hmm.
who was putting on the brave face.
I think he gives it his best. Like, I think he does a good job, in my opinion, of trying to convince the king, but it just seems like there's something that the king won't let go of when it regards to the elves. So it kind of seems like he's gonna fall short no matter what he tries.
Yeah, he presents a well thought out argument. He's got good points. Don't trust all the elves, but trust me, because I'm not just an elf. Still doesn't work.
Yeah, but that line was good. I am no common elf, but Elrond the half-elven and I see in elves what they cannot see in themselves. Because we've never heard him call that out before, but that's exactly what we've seen him be since he found out about how they deceived him.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that he uses his not so much full-on human side, but the piece that's different as a way to say you can trust me because I'm not just that.
I think he made all of the points that he would be able to. I thought he did a great job of using the things that he had. I mean, talking about giving them food for 5 centuries. Come on, like that's a hell of a deal. Shows that he has taken the time to learn their tongue, right? Stone tongue. Like that was a big show of like, hey, I care about you guys like a lot, like more than just academically. Like I'm here to support you guys however I can. Can you just do this for us? I know it's dangerous. I know there are reasons why, but can you help save us? Like I'm pleading with you. I am here. And he just says that, right? I mean, he's calling himself out. Like I am not being too proud to just like Gil-galad wouldn't have gotten anywhere near this kind of useful communication.
Mm-hmm.
I think only Elrond was capable of getting to this kind of, hey, I am just trying to do what I can, and right now you're the only one that can help me. So here I am. I thought he did a great job.
But is the king wrong to say no?
Well, what reasons does he give for saying no?
To Elrond, nothing. He simply says, I'm going to talk to my son.
Mm-hmm.
But his reasons are, I cannot risk my kingdom and my people for the lives of elves, which are destined to be this way anyway.
I think that's the thing that I take away from it. There's definitely the danger factor. They're very worried about how dangerous it is to mine this mithril, but he also comes back to this is what the Valar set in place years, centuries, thousands of years ago. Who were we to change their fate? If this is what their fate is, how can we be the ones that decide that however this fate was chosen is wrong?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I don't like the guy. I'm not saying I don't have some respect for Elrond and what he just did. I'm not saying it wasn't convincing. I'm saying I can't be the one that just says, yeah, let's go ahead and change this all-time historic momentous thing because I want to. Like that's, I think, a bigger piece that is what is really irking him. And yeah, there might be some more things going on that he still doesn't like the elves, for whatever reason. But that's what I took from it as being the major piece, that he just doesn't want to be this fate sealer on somebody else's people. Not saying it's a good answer, but that's just what I took from it.
But who's to say that the fate of the elves that the Valar set out isn't for the Mithril to be there to help? It's.
I know. Hey, start watching some Greek tragedies. It's always like, well, you either mess with it or you don't. Either way, it's going to end up a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you.
Somebody who wasn't happy about the king was Disa.
Yeah, not a fan of this. Lice bearded old fool.
Who cares what he says? Just go do it anyways.
She seems like she's got some. I don't know. Like I like Disa, but it's almost like because she says something like, "The Mithril is ours," right? Like, and she puts herself like, "This is my kingdom too," and so like. I don't know. It seems like she takes a little bit too much credit for being the wife of like the prince, but like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about her just being like, yeah, I have ownership to this too, and one day we'll do it ourselves. Like I think is a little like overstepping the bounds, not because she's a woman or anything. It's just because she's not the direct line. So like it was just weird. I think it's powerful and cool that she is taking on responsibility and like trying to share that. But I just felt a little weird about her accepting like ownership of the kingdom as well. I don't know. That might just be me.
I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on it. I'm not. It didn't bother me,
Sure.
but I think so. And I wonder if it didn't bother me because in some of my spare summers, I have, watched everything I can on the British monarchy just for fun. And typically, right, Queen Elizabeth was different with her prince consort, but it was whoever was married was king with you or it was queen with you,
Sure.
especially as a queen, right? It wasn't, you know, queen consort, it was queen.
Sure.
And it's just since Prince Philip has it been prince consort or the queen's consort as opposed to just a full-on king. So I think that's kind of typical in monarchies that the married person gets the title
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes the power, as we see in other shows. Sometimes that happens. So
Yeah.
I don't think it bothered me. I don't disagree with you that it's a little odd that she has that much ownership when they haven't even taken the throne yet. But I didn't stand
She's
out to
just
me in the
very adamant about it. Like, I get that she wants to help Durin help his friend, but I don't know. It seems like she goes a little extra far almost, as opposed to like just caring for your husband's friend.
Mm-hmm.
John in the chat, I think, makes a pretty good point too. He says, "I think Disa's heart took over for Elrond, and knowing a whole race will die, pushed her buttons a little."
Sure.
I think that's completely valid too. I think it's more than. I'm not disagreeing with you at all,
Yeah.
Riley.
No, I'm here
In
for it.
general, I mean, there's a lot going on
Yeah.
to this proclamation that's being made, right? There's a pretty weighty thing, and yeah, she cares about Durin a lot. She cares about what Elrond means to Durin because she can see how different, how much happier he is with Elrond around, right? I mean, even a little bit later we'll talk about that, but he considers him a brother. I mean, that's pretty freaking close, and she can tell that it means a lot to him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's gonna get, and he's being really calm in this moment. Durin, he's feeling defeated, but he's being very calm. And sometimes you have to have your partner be fired up for you when you know that it's kind of defeated, but it's a good relationship thing
Sure.
to see that she's fired up for him and with him,
Yeah.
even though he's kind of being reserved in that moment. So
I see
I
that.
like seeing that a lot
Yeah.
because you don't want both people getting super fired off at the same time unless it's really worthwhile. You got to balance.
Mhm.
And I liked seeing that here.
And I would say to go with that, I think that balance shows that they do have an equal partnership in their marriage,
Mhm.
that it's not that it is very much her voice matters as much as his does, and he listens to her and her advice, and if she's popping off, he can calm her down. Or earlier when he was, in another episode when he was being the one who was all over the place and she was able to talk him down, that it's a mutual respect thing, that I can speak my voice in here even if we disagree, or even if at the end of the day we have to present that united front, that
Mhm.
we all listen. So I bet she wouldn't be like that outside of the closed doors
Yeah.
of their relationship.
That makes sense.
Right. She wouldn't do this and look like she was undermining him or during the third in a public, realm.
Right.
But here it's a safe space for them to be open with each other. And yeah, go for it. Like, be a little vehement about this, right? Be a little frustrated. Do it and work together from there. Good stuff in my opinion. That was a good scene, I thought.
All right. So then Elrond comes and says, hey, what happened? It didn't go your way. And the goodbye, which really wasn't a goodbye, but they thought it was a goodbye. Oh,
It's a good scene.
they're my favorite bromance.
Yeah. I don't have too much to add. Just it's we're really seeing how much I think we've already talked about it, but how much Durin and Elrond mean to one another, and it's never fun to lose a friend, and especially if you know him and his whole crew or race is gonna die, and you have the opportunity to do something about it, and it gets turned down. It's just sad. Like it's just very
Mhm.
very sad.
Mm-hmm.
But then something happened.
We find out how Mithril helps. It just brings stuff back to life. That's kind of crazy.
The leaf is no longer covered with tar.
Can somebody just try like rubbing it on their face and see if that helps? And how do they know that because the tree is not feeling well that I do. I
I
still
can't
don't
I can't answer
understand.
that question for you, Melissa.
Thank you.
But I want to point out Elrond's probably cured by now because he's been walking around with holding this piece of mithril for maybe a
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks. I mean, he's probably fine for all we know.
Good to go.
Yeah, they could just be like, hey, you get it for the next 2 weeks, and then pass it off to Jim over here, and he'll get it for 2 weeks. We wait, do Celebrimbor last because Melissa hates him, but just pass that one little shard. They don't need more necessarily, like, or they didn't even have to mine more. It sounds like they had some mined previously,
Rationing
right?
out
Like,
your
let's just let them.
lifespan.
Let's just let them borrow it. They could bring it back. See how they could use the little bit that's available. I don't know.
And maybe ship off some of the rest of them that we don't need off to what did Bradley call it? Valor Borealis
Yeah,
into Valinor, like Celebrimbor. Let's get rid of him and just cut the whole plot that's coming up out. I'm all for it.
Thin the herd.
I think you'll need to change the name of the show here pretty soon if that's the case. It's just called
We're gonna
Mithril Solved It.
and they all lived happily ever after, and we're gonna watch them eat apples for 4
Mithril
seasons.
Mysteries, Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, all right. Next scene.
Durin and Elrond dig deep. In a moment of rest, Elrond admits to throwing the contest from earlier. Durin almost reveals his secret name, but Elrond says to save it for the far side. More mining ensues. The motherlode of Mithril is found, but the king appears. Elrond is taken into custody and thrown out with Mithril in hand. The king and the prince argue, and our Durin is stripped of his title.
There was more bonding,
Yeah.
and I like the bonding. Does anybody have any more thoughts on their bonding?
It's good. I think Durin's trying to. It seems like this secret name thing is like one of the last vestiges of privacy that Durin can share. And it's basically like bringing him in to the as far into the dwarven fold as you could possibly be allowed to. I mean, that's as tight as it's gonna get. And Elrond kind of has him hold off, like not that he doesn't want to know, but I think he understands there might be more going on. That let's get through other stuff first. Riley, what did you take it as when he says save it for the far side?
I was gonna ask, what does that mean?
Okay, Melissa, any thoughts? Bailey, any thoughts on the far side?
I thought, like, once we get past this hump in the road, like, we're trying to get the Mithril, we're trying to save the Elven people, like, let's wait until this battle, I
Mhm.
guess, is finished. And, then once we're back to more peaceful times, then you can tell me. You don't have to tell me, like, you're gonna die right now. It's not dire.
That's about how I took it. It was the combination of we're going to make it through this right now. So you can tell me at the end because we're both going to get there. It very much felt like, when you see people in the middle of a disaster and they're like, tell my wife that I love her. And it's, you'll tell her yourself. And then the little guy picks up the big guy and puts him on his back to save him and then drag him out of the whatever. That's what it felt like. Durin was doing this whole, I'm at the end of my line, and so I need to give you my final secrets. And Elrond's like, dude, we're gonna be together still. Like,
We got time.
yeah,
Mhm.
we're good. But appreciated the gesture. He wasn't blowing him off either. So Elrond
That's
has really grown on me with that.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
That's how I took all of that as well.
Mhm.
Just for the far side stuff. Hey, let's get through this current obstacle. Like,
Sure.
let's get this job done, and then we can like take
Mhm.
that extra step if we still want to. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot ahead of us right now. That not saying it's gonna change who we are, but we just got to be careful.
If you still like me after this, then you can tell me.
all right. They make a hole, and oh, the sights they see. I would like to go on the other side of that. That's a lot of mithril.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like there's plenty to go around,
Me thrill for days.
but it does go down pretty deep.
That it's down. It's not just sitting in walls that you can just keep going.
Hmm
It's treacherous, or
Yeah,
as Nori would say, there are perils.
there are
there.
perils. No, I'd agree with that. It looks like it's going to be a difficult job. I mean, for sure, there's going to be scaffolding involved. You know, you're going to have to climb down and do some sort of, side face of a cliff type mining,
hmm
as opposed to, like Melissa was saying, you're not just cutting into the wall and discovering. I guess they can maybe start cutting down and getting the stuff that's below their feet, but yeah, there's stuff across this chasm. It goes down. We see a little bit later on, quite a ways. Um, but yeah, interesting to see. And this does feel very Moria-esque again, right? Like with this huge chasm, it just feels like we've seen similar things. Not necessarily with the mithril there, but with these long, sheer face cliffs
Mhm.
that are these chasms, if you want to call it that. And it just, again, kind of another reference back to the movies, visually felt familiar to me.
I agree. But we don't get to look at it long because in comes the king.
Yeah, right after Elrond looks, he's like, Durin, oh no, it's his daddy.
We've been caught red-handed.
I mean, it
I
was
mean-
pretty loud.
They were
Like,
being loud as like the camera zooms
Mhm.
into where they're. I was like, God,
they're gonna get caught.
for sure, they're asking
Well,
for it.
They had taken the break because they kept causing rumbles.
Right. Yep.
You know, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. They were shaking the whole place, right? Oh,
They really
so of
should have.
course the king came.
They should have taken the Shawshank Redemption approach. Use a
Tap it
spoon
out over
subtly.
60
subtly.
years.
Yeah. A little rock hammer.
Mhm. All right. There is quite the argument. Elrond gets physically thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going to throw him in a dungeon at first.
Oh, I thought they were gonna be holding him for sure, but it's just a straight eviction, right? It's a you're cast
Gone
out,
with you.
right? Stop having my son do things I don't want him to do. Like,
You're a bad influence, Elrond.
You're not welcome in my house anymore. Oh.
You
All
can't
right.
be friends with him.
And the fight with Durin, the two Durins, it was intense.
hmm
And I didn't take any notes, and I didn't really say anything other than the one line where Prince Durin is defending Elrond. And that's, Elrond is as much a brother to me as if he had been fired in my own mother's womb.
how
That's what I wrote
dare you?
down.
How dare you?
hmm
King Durin was not a fan of that one.
It
No.
seemed like there was maybe a way through this before that comment was made. I mean, it seemed like they were getting to a spot when Prince Durin was talking about, you're stifling any chance for ambition. You want me to move mountains, but you won't let me do anything unless it's from your thought.
Yeah.
Like you're stifling all of my potential to do anything grand. And it seemed like there was maybe an in to getting this conversation moving again with that. But as soon as he names Elrond brother, that kind of goes the wrong way. And he says, how dare you, bring up your mother in this moment to cover up your betrayal to your people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Prince Durin had gone down the path of, this is how I can be a leader to our people, if he had kept it about the dwarves,
Mm-hmm.
he might have been able to convince his dad.
Yeah, there was a potential path there. He slammed that door shut by taking it the way he did. He took it a little too far, which is rough. That's disappointing.
Here's the thing, though. Okay, I am Team Prince Durin. Have been since the beginning. So this is in no way changing that. But Prince Durin is not thinking like a leader.
Mm-mm.
He's not a leader. He might be a good manager and he might be a good friend, and he is obviously a good friend, and he is a good husband, and he's trying to be a good son.
He's a good idea man, forward
Yes.
thinking.
He's even I'll do it myself and get out on the front line. I'll be in there with you. I will rescue men. He doesn't think in terms of taking care of who he's supposed to be in charge of.
I
And
think
that's what his father is saying.
Yeah. I think his father has a really important line. I don't remember it exactly, but he says something about like the strongest iron is tempered in the hottest blaze or whatever. And I think that that's what he's trying to do is not make things easy for Durin, so he has to start one thinking around issues differently, and two thinking about the people that he's responsible for.
And I'm not saying that there isn't a way to still be responsible for dwarves, but also potentially find a way for elves, right? I think King Durin is almost too close-minded in it. But neither one of them are wrong in their perspectives.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think both are valid as to what they believe in. There's a middle ground, right? And that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping for that middle ground to get there. And I think it is. I think it is good for King Durin to check Prince Durin here a little. He's asking for a lot. I mean, I'm 100% Team Elf too. I want it to go that way, but I can totally see the hesitation from the king right now as to, well, we can't just blanket do this just because you have a feel good thing for this one elf, and one other thing, we had no part in this. Why are we being beholden to this fate of changing something that seems to have been put in place a long time ago? Like, this isn't just out of the blue. It's not like, oh, they're just being attacked by some evil doer. Like, there's not an apparent peril on their doorstep that we had any part in.
Right.
So you need to take an extra further couple steps to think about what that means for your people. And again, I completely want to go Prince Durin's way and Elrond's way. There's going to be a middle ground found, and hopefully it's not just, oh, King Durin dies and Prince Durin gets his way. Like, I hope it doesn't go that way, but right now that'd be the easiest solution.
Yeah.
Looks like Disa might be interested in killing him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So let's jump to that next Khazad-dûm scene, and let's find out how Disa takes that news.
Disa and Durin drink their sorrows. Disa blames the king and rallies her husband with the promise that when they rule, they will dig. King Durin finds the healed leaf, but orders the mithril vein sealed up. As the leaf falls, it lands at the feet of the Balrog of Morgoth.
Talk about a Lord of the Rings flashback. Dun, dun, dun.
I was like, I know him.
I know him.
He's a friend from work. All right, let's talk Disa. Whew. she got heated. I'm really curious, Riley, what your take is on her argument of, well, we'll just wait, and when it's our turn, we'll do it.
I mean, I think that that's more fair of an approach. Like when we have the authority, then we'll do what we want, and do what we think is right. I think it makes sense with her on that. However, it doesn't seem like that will fix their problem of losing all of the elves. But, if that's what they're going to do, then that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, she's definitely kind of resigning themselves to, well, when we can make the change, we will, and hopefully that'll be enough to make a difference. Hopefully it's not so far down the road that it's too far gone to help our friends in this. But clearly right now, that's not an option for us, by us. And it's kind of a rough spot there, but they're owning up to it, right, on where they're... And she's also convinced that, yeah, even though the king took the little necklace of office, if you will, the title from Prince Simmons, that doesn't seem to bother her at all. She's like, it doesn't matter if he takes 100 necklaces from you. Like, you're still going to be king. It's not going to be somebody else. It's not like your father loves you. He's going to still have you be the guy. So, like, don't stress out about that right now. And when we get a chance, we'll do what we can.
Did you notice she mentions it won't be your brother?
Yeah, well, she said brothers, I thought.
She might have, but there's more of them.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be a season 3 reveal.
Yeah, probably.
Balrog.
Will we get another harkening back to Lord of the Rings, I think, here with the leaf falling all the way through the cracks and stuff? It very much felt like Pippin knocking the skeleton helmet down and just bouncing through Moria, and just how deep down it goes.
Fool of a took.
Yep.
Throw yourself in with it next time.
I mean, obviously, it's a lot like when Gandalf goes down after the Balrog as well, too, right? And I guess you could throw in the Hobbit when they're fighting the Goblin King. They have a going down the walls, different place there, but similar.
Yeah.
Cave, cliff, scenes.
Extensive depths.
Right. Yeah. Truly bowels of this internal cavern system. The
So
leaf
what'd you think of
catches fire.
So apparently the mithril didn't work that well.
Right, yeah. It's not Balrog proof.
What is?
I mean, clearly, and we saw the animated Three Brothers version of the Balrog earlier, right? When we had the story from Gil-galad, well, with Elrond telling it about the Silmarils, the one that got lost in the cave and all that stuff. So we clearly knew that they were going to have a very similar type stylistic Balrog to the Peter Jackson films. And we get 100% confirmation on that, right? It's the same ethereally smoky, not sure if they're real wings or not, which is a huge contentious thing in all of Tolkien history. Do they have real wings or not? It's a whole thing. And I like how they just leave it up to maybe. Not sure,
We're not saying they don't.
but we're opening the door that they
You decide.
could. Yeah. So,
But doesn't mean they do. That's fine.
yeah, that's okay. It looks good. I thought it got to the point,
It was better than the wargs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There are, potential timeline problems with the Balrog being here, all that, but it doesn't bother me at all. There's so many other things that are bigger issues potentially that just roll with it. Enjoy the show. See a Balrog and be happy.
I have no idea how long Balrogs live, so I am totally fine. This tracks for me. I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, well, they're Maiar, so infinite if they want.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No problems. You know what time it is.
Well, I think it's that time in every episode that comes up when we're getting close to the end of our episode, and every episode has one of these, and this happens to be this current episode's final scene.
Final scene.
Final scene. Cheers.
Here we go. Whew. Finally, Adar appears and he orders the orcs to remove their cloaks because they are no longer burdened by the day. And Waldrig, and how is this guy still alive? WTF, starts the chant hailing Adar, Lord of the Southlands. Adar pulls a and decides to rename the Southlands via titles sequence to Mordor.
I don't like how they did that at all.
Mordor Fun Run shirt.
What a
Nice.
nice shirt, Luke.
Thanks, Bailey.
I wish Adar would have just said it instead of the title. Like,
It was a bit cheesy.
it was stupid. It made me upset.
Have him say it and do the title
Yeah.
change, but
We just
it's weird.
all assume, like, if you're going to do like a creation story for a place, do the story. Don't just write text that we all assume because we already know. I don't know. I would have liked to get the moment where Mordor was first set, and maybe something about why. Like
why would he name it that kind of
Yeah.
thing?
All I have going on in my head is Candace singing, Mom, Phineas and Ferb are making a title sequence, because that's basically what Adar did. So I am obviously of no use in this moment. I was busy being hung up on the fact that Waldrig didn't die, even though he was at ground zero of the volcano explosion.
No, he wasn't. He was at the tower.
Yeah, he was back at the dam.
Oh, and the water had to go that far. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, he was
bothering
he
me.
was way safe.
He was probably the only one totally fine.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I like that we know we're in Mordor, but I don't like the way they did it.
I think with how much they've done interesting on the map, I think they could have done it that way and do a similar thing where the name changes. I think that could have been okay rather than just this, which reminds me of back to when Game of Thrones first starts. The very first episode of season 1 is the only time they ever did this, but they showed Winterfell like written out or King's Landing, and then they quickly stopped doing that because it's just kind of silly. It can work in some shows.
We did that in episode 1. They did have the title Google Sheet style as they went into places.
Right.
So technically, this is the first time we've been in Mordor. I can make that leap. It's just been 7 episodes, so
that's the thing. Like, it just hasn't happened since, and they've gone more to the map stuff, like on the traveling scenes and things like that. That I think, with how map heavy the books are, and how proud he always was of his maps, I think that would have been better. And I think still just say it out loud.
Yeah.
Or at least take a vote from the orcs. Be like, everyone get your vote in. You know, we're gonna have a committee
we're all
meeting.
family here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like name it something different until Sauron comes in and names it Mordor. Like, it's interesting to me that Adar is the one who names it and then it sticks.
Yeah, not only creates it but also names it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally fair.
Episode title accuracy. Episode title was The Eye.
The lack of eyes.
I'd say this was one of the weaker ones, in my opinion. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. Queen Muriel begs to differ. Like, pretty much, an eye was a really important part of her story.
Yeah, I don't
Other than
know.
that,
Just
though.
putting the in front of it just feels like it's meant to be the Eye of Sauron, right? Which is specifically not a thing yet. So
And I'm sure it was a call to, well, we can't call it Mordor yet, so we have to do something that gets them thinking about.
they called the last one Udun, which is a depressed valley in Mordor. Like, it, I don't know. I feel like they should have called this one Udun.
Sure.
But oh well.
All right. Anyone else? Thumbs up, down, no.
One of the weaker ones, in my
Best
opinion.
title.
Yeah, I would say this is one of my least favorites, but All right, let's do description accuracy. The description was survivors of a cataclysm try to find safety. The Harfoots confront evil. Durin is torn between friendship and duty. Adar considers a new name. True? False?
I mean, Adar didn't really consider a new name because he didn't say anything. So
We don't know. He could have been thinking. But yeah, I think they could have left that last line off.
Yeah, well, I think that with that, it definitely feels like they're trying to convince you, hey, he's gonna change his name to Sauron now, right? Like after last episode, it's supposed to be vague in a way that, oh man, it's gonna be revealed who he is, right? And it's a bit cheap,
No, he's just renaming territory.
right? Yeah,
I mean, to the conqueror go the spoils. He has the right to.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Second breakfast time. Favorite or least favorite thing? Doesn't have to be either. Can be both. Up to you. Riley, let's start with you. What was your favorite or least favorite thing?
I hmm. I really liked the chaos that ensued right at the beginning of the episode with just everybody reacting to the explosion and um I just thought how chaotic and the fact that they like paid that off right away was really nice. Least favorite thing, I just I hate King Durin. I just I see where he's coming from, but it feels like a barrier to a storyline that is going to be mm, gotten through no matter what, and it just seems to be dragging. And we don't have that many episodes, and I know we have more seasons, but I just don't care for his stance.
All right.
I have one thought though. I think I forget what you named the episode, our episode. But I have oh yes, the times they are a changin'. I have a second honorable mention song title, "Cities on Flame" with Rock and Roll.
Blue Oyster Cult classic,
Yeah,
great song.
Awesome. Because I was struggling. I had like 15 choices
sure.
today. So that's a good one. All right. Luke, favorite and or least favorite thing?
I really like the Elrond Prince Durin stuff, just in general. Anytime those two are on screen together, there's gonna be something good. I think the chemistry between the actors and the characters is phenomenal. To me, they're definitely one of my favorite things about this show so far. Um, yeah, least favorite thing is kind of rough to see it not going their way right now when we kind of all are rooting for that. So I'll kind of leave it there. Just Elrond Durin, my guys.
All right. Bailey, favorite and or least favorite?
Favorite. I think the expedition of the Harfoots going out to save the stranger and try to get to him. And least favorite would be just the creepy people coming in and ruining the day. And why do they have to look so creepy? Why?
I know. I want to know who they are.
We might find that out.
Yeah. I have questions.
All right. Me. Oh, I'm next. It's fine. My favorite thing was the opening scene. I loved the look of it. I loved the bewilderment and the shock that our people were having. I loved the on fire horse, but then I immediately thought, how did they pull it off and still maintain the horse safety? Because, right, like you don't actually set horses on fire. So I was able to keep my suspended belief, but the visual was amazing. I don't think I had a least favorite thing in this episode. I like that I'm liking the Harfoots because that is unusual for me, and I'm always team Prince Durin, so that's good too. I don't know. I don't think I liked that Halbrand wasn't revealed till the very end. That felt
Sure.
eh. And Isildur's not dead, so like stop killing off the people that we actually know aren't killed off. Maybe kill off somebody who we don't know survives. And that's it. So let's go with how about another Drawbridge Media podcast, because we have lots of shows here in our little world here. And Bailey, is there one you'd like to direct our friends to check out if they haven't before?
If you are a fan of Harry Potter, you should definitely check out the podcast that must not be named, where Luke and Melissa go chapter by chapter, delving into all of the hijinks that the Hogwarts kids get up to.
Thanks. And you can learn more about that show and all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com. We are going to sign out. Please give us your name, where we can find you, and a final thought or question. And Riley, let's start with you.
Hey, I am Riley. You can find me on Twitter at HokeyOnRye. And my final thought is I am sad there's only one episode left for this season.
Bailey.
I am Bailey. You can find me on Twitter at Riddle Writes, and I'm gonna guess that Isildur being alive is the last thing that we find out next episode.
Luke.
I am Luke. You can find me on social medias like Twitter or Instagram at Luke Ferocious. This felt like your run-of-the-mill season 1, episode 7, second to last episode of a show
did Gwen
called
show up? I'm so
Rings of
confused.
Power, brought to you by Lord of the Rings. And yeah, it's run-of-the-mill.
And I'm Melissa. You can find me at mcrowley522 or at the at Floats Down Here, or here on this one at Wanderers and Lost. Both of those are on Twitter. My final thought is more of a question for the panel. Who's Sauron? Best guess.
Halbrand.
Yeah.
Okay, I disagree with all of you, and I think it's the stranger, but that's okay. That's right. In the chat, we also said it was Malva, so it could be anyone at this point.
That's one thing that
It's
they've
fine.
really done with this show. They've left a lot of these, like, that's kind of been the main theme of the show, right? Of hidden characters that we know being called or not called anything else. That's like 95% of what's been going on every episode.
My guess, we find out who Sauron is penultimate episode of season 3.
I bet we find out maybe even at the very end of next episode.
I do not
That
think
seems
so.
a little quick, but maybe season 2. We'll see.
I mean, Ross and Rachel didn't get together until the end of season 2, so I'm going to go with the end of season 2. That's about when we tend to get payoffs on long-running shows. So I go end of season 2, but in the meanwhile, we might get like one other reveal. Like maybe we'll find out who the stranger is sooner than we find out who Sauron is, even though he is Sauron. So maybe not him, but it's fine.
We'll see. We'll see where it goes.
All right. You can become a patron and help out this show and all of our shows. Learn more at patreon.com/stayimaginary. I have already given our Twitter, right? Twitter is great. Find us at Wanders and Lost, or on Instagram, which is different and is at Wanders and is Lost, which is also our email, wandersandislost@gmail.com. We love it if you would subscribe, like, rate, and leave us comments on iTunes and right here on YouTube. For those of us who are those of you who are in the chat with us right now, don't forget on YouTube to hit that notification bell, because you too can join us live in the chat, just like our friends who have been here tonight. I appreciate all of you and all of your ideas and wonderfulness. It's nice to see some friendly faces, so that was awesome. And after that, until next time,
Stay imaginary.
thanks.
My buttons are hiding. There they are. Bye, everyone.